We had a 2-minute basically staring contest where I was caught in this weird squat. My quads are burning. I was just like engaging my core as much as I can. And I was like, I'm going to win this stare down. I'm going to win this stare down. And then finally it took a couple steps and I just drew back. And as soon as it caught a little movement, it bounded away. And so in that 2 minutes, I wasn't even looking at the deer. I kind of just had my head down and was looking at its feet so it couldn't see my eyes. I just knew it was by itself. There was no other deer. And so it bounded away. And I remember when I drew back, I was like, it kind of looked smaller than a full, like a big doe. But I was like, it's definitely bigger than a fawn. Definitely bigger than a fawn. Well, turns out it was a little nubbin buck. It had little 1 inch, maybe just a little less, little nubs on it. I shot it quartering away at 36 yards. Still didn't know it was a nubbin buck. I just saw the doe. To me at that time, I was like, it's a doe. I was like, it's not huge. It's not a big doe, but I was like, it's by itself. I was like, I'm pretty sure it's not a yearling or not a fawn at this point is what I'm thinking. See that lone pine up on that hill over there? What are we actually doing right now? The kids are just wild out there. They're wild. But they're having a good time, They're having a good time. This is Untamed Unbroken, the Adventurer's Guide, and I'm your host, Blake Bredesen. Welcome to this episode, Untamed Unbroken. Today we're talking late season bow hunting in Minnesota and a quick recap on the 23 season, which runs from mid-September to the last day of December every year here in Minnesota. That is bow season, that's archery season. And we're going to do a quick recap. So we're going to talk about gear considerations, planning, and how it looks, in that December month really is what we're going to be focusing on and comparing in contrast to September, October, kind of all the considerations to make throughout a long 3.5 month season, that early versus late season. So let's get into it. This year in particular, I usually get out right away in September. This year I did not. The first time I got out was October, mid-October. Got out one evening. Did not see. No, I got out one morning, and I saw some deer. Got into my stand, and it was still dark out. And one deer walked by within 10 yards. Couldn't tell what it was, and it was just at a trot, moving quickly from a cornfield into the woods under my stand, and then off and gone. So, and then I saw I think it was about four. I think it was 4 does, a doe and 3 fawns, 3 yearlings. Later that morning, and they kind of got behind me. They were coming at me, then they got behind me, winded me. Just the direction they came, unless they were to come in front of me, they wouldn't have winded me, but they went behind me. They were 40 yards away when they winded me, and then they angled further away and just kind of took the long route around behind me. So when I go hunting, I have an antlerless tag and I have my regular tag. So I'm always prepared right away because I want meat in the freezer. I'm always prepared right away to shoot the first antlerless deer that I have an opportunity to, especially if it's an antlerless deer by itself. I'm not really big on shooting, a doe that has fawns with her. And I'm not really big on shooting fawns, although that's exactly what happened to me this year. And I say happened to me because I didn't know I was shooting a little nubbin buck. It was the second time I got out, so towards the end of October, it's like the 22nd or 23rd or something like that, evening hunt. I was out there from like 2 p.m. on. It gets dark at 7:30 at this point. And yeah, I think about 7 o'clock maybe is last legal shooting light, maybe 6:50. Anyways, it was within the last half hour of legal shooting light, and deer comes out at 10 yards, and we just kind of have this. It stops and stare down, and I got caught in a weird half squat position. I'm on the ground in a ground blind, which I've only hunted out of a ground blind a couple times. So this wasn't, I don't know, not super comfortable with it. And so I had all the mesh down, which was my first mistake, I guess. And I didn't have my hands covered. Second mistake. Stuck out like a sore thumb. My hands did. Everything else was covered. But I just didn't feel comfortable shooting through the mesh. I hadn't done it before and I didn't practice it. So I was like, I'm not going to make my first shot through the mesh on a deer. So I took that down. Took the mesh down, just Velcroed. So took that down. We had a 2-minute basically staring contest where I was caught in this weird squat. My quads are burning. I was just like engaging my core as much as I can. And I was like, I'm going to win this stare down. I'm going to win this stare down. Then finally it took a couple steps and I just drew back. And as soon as it caught a little movement, it bounded away. And so in that 2 minutes, I wasn't even looking at the deer. I kind of just had my head down and was looking at its feet so it couldn't see my eyes. I just knew it was by itself. There was no other deer. And so it bounded away. And I remember when I drew back, I was like, it kind of looked smaller than a full, like a big doe. But I was like, it's definitely bigger than a fawn. Definitely bigger than a fawn. Well, turns out it was a little nubbin buck. It had little 1 inch, maybe just a little less, little nubs on it. I shot it quartering away at 36 yards. Still didn't know it was a nubbin buck. I just saw the doe. To me at that time, I was like, it's a doe. I was like, it's not huge. It's not a big doe, but I was like, it's by itself. I was like, I'm pretty sure it's not a yearling or not a fawn at this point is what I'm thinking. So I shoot it, runs straight away from me. And then 10 minutes later, a doe comes out and 2 fawns come out. And I'm like, yeah, that might have been. I was like, it's definitely bigger than those 2 fawns, but it's definitely not as big as that doe. And so I knew I had shot a smaller doe is what I was thinking, just a smaller doe. And I had actually pulled back on the big doe because I had a second tag. And I was like, well, let's just put 2 deer in the freezer right now. Not really hunting. I'm not hunting antlers. Hunting meat. But I decided not to shoot because I was like, I just shot one. This is my second time hunting for the year. I still have November and December. And I still had the last weekend of October and on. Well, it turns out I didn't get out too much more. Did not shoot another deer. And I wish I would have shot that doe. But anyways, that's that. Got out a few more times, like I said, in November and once in December. I didn't see anything, I don't think, in December. And I didn't see much in November really either. Personally right now, I have 2 little kids, 5 and 2. I'd rather be home with them. There's this push and pull with that. And I want to be home with them. So they're my priorities. So I don't do all day sits anymore as of now. So I go out and I'm out for 4 hours, 5 hours. Maybe it's in the morning, That's kind of the ideal with our schedules. It works really well for me to just go out in the morning. They don't get up until 7:30. I'm already out the door and in a tree stand by then. And then I'm back by lunch. If I hunt the evenings, it's almost like I'm gone longer because I leave at 1 o'clock and I'm not getting back till 6, 7, 8 o'clock. So it's like I spend the same amount of time in the stand or same amount of time shooting, like during shooting hours with light. But the morning time's more efficient. That way I still get time on the weekends to see the kids and hang out with them. But I probably got out 9 or 10 times this year. It was good to get out. Did some scouting and hiking around with the kids as well during it. But overall, it was a good year. Got one deer in the freezer. Next year, I'm definitely going to be doing, I haven't done any rifle hunting the last few years. I've just stuck to bow hunting. But I really want some more meat in the freezer. And so I'm probably going to rifle hunt next year just so I can add a second or third deer to the freezer. I'll still bow hunt, but I just want to eliminate our need for any beef at all. Like, I don't want to go buy a quarter cow. I just don't. I like venison better. So that's looking ahead to next year, 24 September. It's a handful of months away, but it'll come. Now let's get on to early season versus late season in Minnesota. This can vary widely. I've shot a deer on opening morning. It was 40 degrees. The September 16th, 17th, something like that. This was a few years ago. Shot a doe, opening morning, 40 degrees. By noon, it's 70. And so you just, you're wearing some warmer stuff right away in the morning just to stay warm. It's 40 in September. Feels cold. 40 in January is hot. It's hot. But 40 in September feels really cold. And so just packing, I think I had a puffy jacket with that I was wearing right away in the morning. But as soon as that sun comes up, starts shining, it warms up quick. But just processing that deer really quickly, getting it processed as quick as I can. I do everything myself. So, I drugged that deer out, hung it in the garage and butchered it. When it's warm like that, we had some stuff going on that day, so I didn't butcher it all right away. I quartered it, got all the good meat, all the meat off, and I froze the meat. I just threw it in the freezer, and we had to go do something. And then the next weekend, I took it all out and thawed it a little bit, and then cut it up, butchered it, processed it, packaged it, put it back in the freezer. So yes, I did freeze it. It thawed out, and I froze it again. Guess what? No problems. None at all. When you process your food correctly, you're not getting a lot of dirt. You're not getting any guts or any crap like that on it. And it's clean and it didn't spoil. You can get away with that. You can get away with freezing it, thawing it out to finish the processing, and then refreezing it. The meat's totally fine. It's still super good. Okay. This year with the deer, it was kind of the normal processing, which is I was up at my parents', I was up north, quartered it, it's in the cooler, got all the meat in the cooler, come home, processed it, and then froze it. So it didn't get frozen twice, just once in the freezer. Super good. So just considerations when it's hotter out, you definitely want to process that deer as quickly as you can. That's how I do it. I know you can get away with quite a bit, but once you hit October, you don't really have to worry too much. It's usually starting to cool down quite a bit and definitely cooling off at night. Now, winter considerations, and just gear speaking here. If there's a lot of snow, I like to hunt in the snow. I'll have snowshoes if necessary to be busting out there. I hunt a lot of public land, so it's not my backyard or anything. So I have to pack all the gear, carry it out there, throw up a stand, sit. And so in the winter, I throw it all in a big sled and pull it in and then throw it up. I always am wearing some merino wool and then pants and kind of like a grid fleece, kind of like this grid fleece that I'm wearing right now. If you're watching this, wear a grid fleece over some merino wool, a couple merino wool layers, one thinner base layer, and then kind of a mid-weight merino wool layer, and then a grid fleece. And that's what I'll wear walking out, just sweat management. And then I'll have warmer clothes to put on. I'll put those on, or I'll get some things set up as much as I can, and I'll put that on, then climb up into my stand. And then get all secure and stuff in there. Once I'm up in my stand, I do, depending on what stand I'm in, if I'm in my climber stand that has a shooting rail, I will sometimes, if it's cold, I will sometimes bring I have a tie blanket that I tied a middle layer into that is windproof. And I'll wrap that around there and I could sit. And I did that when I was rifle hunting in northern Minnesota, when it's cold and windy and we were sitting all day in a tree stand, not in a hunting blind, in a tree stand. I made that blanket for that specific reason, to cut the wind and help me sit in a tree stand in that bitter freezing, in those freezing temps all day. And I was able to do it. And so lately, I mean, around here, when I'm going out sitting for 4 hours, I don't usually bring it unless it's a really cold day. Like, I would say single digits. If I'm out there hunting in single digits, then I'll haul it with me. Then I'm okay with that. Boot covers. I throw on boot covers. Seems my toes are always the first thing to get cold. I could use a little upgrade in the boot department as well. I just got some Danners 1200 gram Thinsulate in those, but my toes, yeah, they get cold after a little bit in the winter, and so I throw those boot covers on that help just cut the wind. And I'll throw even a little chemical heating pack in those that just kind of sits on top of my boot, and it creates a little hot pocket in those boot covers, and that's pretty legit. So you should try that. Or the toe warmers with the sticky ones. I don't like to put those in. I don't like having those in my boot, but I will stick them on top of my boot or on the top of the boot cover, and it just creates a pocket of warmth that my boot sits in. And so that's a good way to do it. I like that. I wear like a thick wool / fleece blend pants and jacket in the winter. And then I layer underneath that. Sometimes I'll have a puffy underneath it. Sometimes I just have, fleece sweatshirt type of thing underneath that. And that, it's just like layering your pants. So it's got a base wool of long underwear and then some sort of pant. Sometimes it's a thinner pant. Sometimes it's a thicker pant, or maybe even sweatpants. And then those wool pants over that once I'm out in the stand. if I wear the wool, like the warm outer layers, out to the stand, I'm sweating, and then it's game over. I won't last very long if that's the way I do it. But in my favorite month to hunt, I mean, just for like the peacefulness, is December. It's quiet, especially the second half when there's no one out there, muzzle loader. That second half of December is so quiet. It's so nice. Yes, it's cold. Most years it's cold. This year it wasn't, but it's nice. I've killed deer in December. I've had, but nothing crazy. Nothing but does. October is probably my second favorite. That November, I mean, I like it all. September is my least favorite month to hunt, for sure, because it's warmer. I don't like hunting in warm weather. Not a big fan. So there you go. There you have it. Gear considerations. Give you a couple things. The blanket, like if you're sitting outside all day, make your own tie blanket and put a thin wind breaking layer in between those two layers of fleece. Dude, it's the best thing. It's the best blanket ever, I swear. Or get a wool blanket or something like that to wrap around your shooting rail if you are hunting out of one like that. Like I bow hunt out of my climber, and yes, it has a shooting rail that doesn't get in the way of me pulling back my bow or anything like that. Mainly because in that stand, I will stand up. I'll make sure I'm standing in a standing position, which just adds another layer of, I can't just draw from seated, not easily. So, but it's a risk I'm willing to take to stay warm and actually be out there hunting. Yeah, that pretty much does it. The biggest thing late season is layering up, having good base layers, and keeping your toes warm. There you go. We'll see you on the next one. Thank you for sticking around. If you've enjoyed the show, don't forget to subscribe, leave us a rating and review. Even one word, it helps a ton. Sincerely appreciate you guys. Thank you all, and we'll see you on the next one. Stay wild.
You've been listening to Untamed, Unbroken, a Lone Pine Adventures original podcast.